Chad George,
Oh,
my brother. Bellator, I mean, how many years were you fighting?
15 years.
15 years.
15 years.
Jiu-Jitsu Black Belt, owner of California Mixed Martial Arts in Gardena, California. We've been friends for
Long time now.
long time. You're a legend.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Man, you've been helping people so long, you know, in their journey, fighting journeys, and yeah, it's a big pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me, man. I love it. I really appreciate you bringing me on. I love the fact that you're doing the same thing, man. You know,
And you have your own podcast as well, right?
I do the Savage Hour podcast.
Savage Hour podcast.
So it's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, iTunes, every platform you can think of. You know, just trying to spread the word of self-development and, you know, helping each other get by just a little bit further each day.
That's it. So how did you start fighting? How did that happen?
So I started fighting by a complete accident. Honestly, I was a professional artist at the time, and this is obviously
Artist, like painting and stuff?
Yeah, so I went to art and film school, originally from Sacramento, and then I moved here to pursue film school. And so I went to the Art Institute in Santa Monica. That's no longer around, but I was working a lot. I was in the industry. I was doing a lot of professional work, and I needed something to get me back in shape because I was just doing a lot of really bad habits, you know, like smoking cigarettes. I was doing cocaine. You know what I mean? Like all these things that I never did in my life. And I knew I had to do something just to get me out of that cycle. And so a buddy I worked on a film with told me about this jiu-jitsu school. And this is back when, I mean, we were talking before 2003, 2004, before you could turn around every corner, there's a jiu-jitsu school.
Is it the PKG?
No, this is actually even before then.
Okay.
This is before. This is at a place called Abrigo Martial Arts.
Brigo?
Abrigo. It was
Abrigo,
it was a Taekwondo school that had a jiu-jitsu class that was in it.
Okay.
And and anyways, I remember my buddy said, "Hey, you know, if you want to try something out, come and try the jiu-jitsu." I said, "Nah, you know what? I've wrestled my whole life. I'm gonna see if I can find a wrestling program."
You wrestled in high school?
Yeah, I wrestled in junior high school, and then junior college when I wrestled in.
Where'd you grow up?
Sacramento. And I couldn't find any school. This is when they pulled all the programs out of all the colleges, so I couldn't find anything. I said, "You know what? I need to do something." And I remember him telling me it was similar to wrestling. And so I went and tried it, and it was a no-gi day. So that was actually fell in perfectly. It was a no-gi day, and actually the guy, when I went in there was this guy named Musa Tolliver. Does that name ring a bell?
I think so, yeah.
Musa is still around. He's a guy that fights MMA. He's a guy that shows up in everybody's gym. Everybody knows him. And he happened to be the guy that I trained with that day as a partner. Another wrestler that hadn't found another wrestler to train with. And I went in the gym and we wrestled a bit, and I remember they showed me like a guillotine choke. Yeah. And I was like, holy shit, this is pretty dope. I get to wrestle and I get to choke people. Like, that's amazing. I
wasn't allowed to do before.
Exactly. And I was one of those kids also that, you know, I was bullied a lot when I was growing up. And when I found this, it was kind of a way for me to realize that I didn't have to be the scared kid anymore. But that didn't come till later. And then when I fell in love with that class, and then they told me that there was an MMA class in the evening that they offered. And again, it was the same thing. I was like, yeah, I'm not really into that stuff. I've seen it on TV, and this was like the old UFC days.
Yeah.
And I tried that class just out of the same curiosity, and I was like, wait a minute, this is pretty awesome. I get to punch people, I get to kick people, I get to wrestle, and I get to choke people. This is awesome. And then the rest was kind of history. I took my first professional fight 2 months later, which doesn't really seem like the smartest thing to do. Because back then there was no amateurs.
Right.
So I remember
I never did an amateur fight as well.
Yeah, I tell all my students now, they have no idea how good they have it. This whole camo system, for them to be able to figure out if this is something we want to do. When we first started, it was like, hey, you're gonna go fight for I don't know how much money, yes or no? And it's like, sure.
Okay, yeah.
And so that's how that started. But I remember when I was offered my first fight, I had never even sparred. It was I had never even sparred before. We had done some jiu-jitsu classes, and mind you, I'm still working full time, and I'm still participating in my bad habits. And
you're in school at that time?
I was still in school.
Okay.
I was still in school. So I was working while in school, and training twice a week. You know, it wasn't anything serious because I hadn't had that bug yet. It didn't click to me what this could do for me. And I remember he said, "Hey, just throwing this out there. You know, I got offered something. Would you be interested in doing a fight?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And, this was Ian Harris. You know Ian? So Ian Harris. And he said, "You want to do a fight?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, I'm not trying to pressure you, but I got a call from this promoter that they're looking for a newer fighter that may be interested in doing a fight against another guy who has, you know, a little bit more experience, but mostly a wrestler." And I said, "Well, I don't know. When?" And let's say this conversation was on a Wednesday, and he said, "Well, it'll be on Saturday." And I said, "Wait a minute, hold on. So you want me to do a fight on Saturday?" And I said, "What is it? Is it like a amateur fight?" He goes, "No, it's a professional fight." And so then I'm thinking about it. I'm like, "Wait a minute. So that means I get paid?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "How much?" He goes, "I don't know. Never done this before." So I mean, this whole thing doesn't make sense. I said, "Okay, so you want me to fight on Saturday? You don't know how much money, but it is a professional fight."
Yeah.
"Well, where is it? Is it here local?" And he says, "No, it's in Tijuana." So everything in me should have said no, but everything just seemed so right that it seemed beyond anything I could even comprehend at the time. And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." And we went out to Mexico. Weigh-ins were on Friday. I fought on Saturday. Got beat up for 3 rounds, and I actually won by guillotine in the 3rd round.
There you go.
And that was the adrenaline that was.
How was that feeling? Getting the hand raised in the cage.
It was being unplugged from the matrix. You know, I think only people that have actually been in there can understand what that reference means to. I know people see the movie, but until you're in there and you realize that.
That's a good way to put it.
That you're unplugged from everything else. Nothing matters. And if you are paying attention to anything else, that's when bad things happen.
For sure.
But I remember that first time, I was so exhausted. There's even video of it. The referee had to pick me up off the canvas to walk me to my corner in the 3rd round. And there was nothing I could compare it to. There was no explanation. There's no description. There was nothing that I could even try to relate it to. And it was just one of those things that I knew I had to do it again. And so I gave myself about another year just to train properly before I did my next fight. And then I won that one as well. And then I started realizing that, man, if
I want to do this.
If I want to do this, I can do this. And I can always come back to artwork. And so I started pulling away little by little with my art game. And then when I had my first loss was when I made the decision that, you know what, I'm going to commit 100% to this. And I dove all in. I gave up.
How many fights did you win before you lost?
So I was 3-1. So
okay.
I was actually. So I fought on the very first California sanctioned event because it was actually illegal here in California when I was.
It was only an Indian reservation,
which I know you know about. Yeah. And so California's finally sanctioned it. And I fought on the very first event.
Which event was that?
TFA, Total Fighting Alliance. And then I fought for the very first state sanctioned championship title as well. And I lost that one. But that made me realize that I'm already placed myself in an environment where I can actually succeed with this at a time where I had no idea what this is even possible.
Right.
And so then I started training.
What years was that?
So
2004?
2004 was when I did my first fight. So I'd say I think 2005 was probably the first one in California. So doing the math, it must be 2006, 2007, somewhere around there for the title fight and the loss. And
I did my first fight in 2002. And then they stopped at lightweight division in the UFC around 2005, I think. Yeah, and then they brought it back in 2007, I think.
And then the WEC started.
Right.
And I was in the WEC, had my fights in there. And actually, it's funny, if you Google my name, I have a UFC record, even though my contract was carried over to the UFC,
right.
but they never gave me my first fight. They were
the UFC never did.
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting that I was with the whole wave of the bantamweights that were brought over.
Right.
And they, for whatever reason, my contract just never got placed with a matchup, and then I started fighting outside the show again. So
how did that occupation fighter on Netflix show happen?
well, so Occupation Fighter was
Because that was pretty early on as well.
yeah, so that happened in my that was leading up to my last fight in the WEC.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it was a little bit not later. I'd say mid part of my career.
Okay.
I had moved in with an ex of mine that we moved in this complex, and our next door neighbor happened to be this film director.
Oh,
and
okay.
he was a documentary guy, and he was just in between projects, and just by coincidence, he was in between things, and he was looking for some kind of inspiration, and here comes this fighter that's struggling to make it, trying to figure out his way.
Your enthusiasm. I'm sure you got him to come in and train, right?
No, not at all. Actually, so he was an overweight film producer from Germany. And
Interesting.
When we started talking about this idea of the film, he actually loved the fact that because to him, I was the first fighter he had ever met. And in his mind, fighters were these big, burly, tough guys who were punks, who had egos and attitudes.
Yeah.
And he sees me, just this normal dude, every day. And we go out, eat and have lunch and have dinner and just hang out.
Yeah.
And it really caught his attention. So he said it inspired him to want to start getting in shape. Now, the original idea of the film was really supposed to be about him. It was supposed to be about a overweight, bad habit film director meets this fighter, and through osmosis changes his life, and it becomes about the filmmaker. But he said that while he started filming and learning about my lifestyle and learning about what it really takes to be a fighter, he said it was really obvious what direction the film needed to be about, and it needed to be the story of what it really means to be an up-and-coming fighter and what we go through. Because most people only see what they see on TV. Right. They don't see the struggle. They don't see
it's easy.
the finances. It's easy. Yeah, it's easy. It's easy, man. Look at all you have to do is go fight for 15 minutes. Like, I don't get it.
For sure.
You make millions of dollars. You're on TV. That's the best part about it. When people say, "Man, I see you on TV. You probably got a house in the hills." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I live on somebody's couch." And that was the stuff that really intrigued him and made him want to create this film. And there was a lot of backstory that went into the film as well. But man, it was amazing, the product that he put out with it, and the outreach that we got from community all over the world, and how it inspired other people to realize that there's that fighter in all of us. And I think that was the message from it.
Sure.
That for me and you and a lot of guys that have been through the sport, it's like we've actually had to go in there and fight, but all of us truly have that fighter in us for whatever it is we want. And I think that's what made that story so connected to everyone. That it wasn't a Cinderella story. It wasn't one of these movies or storylines that, at the end of the day, everybody wins. It's like, no, they don't. I lost the fight at the end of it. I lost everything. But that's life. Yeah. Life teaches us that's what's going to allow you to actually have those moments of gratitude. It's going to allow you to have those moments of champion. You gotta take those blows just like you got to take the victories. And most of the time you're going to take more losses than you are wins, but that's what makes the wins so great.
Yeah. It's the journey, right?
Yeah, man, it's the journey. I'm sure you have tons of stories that you could talk about too, and people are like, "What? You went through that?"
Yeah, I was telling somebody on a couple of shows ago how, like, my losses when I first started doing jiu-jitsu, it wasn't fighting MMA, but when I first competed, I lost for like 3 years. And, you have different, wins and accolades, whatever. But what I'm most proud of personally in my life was persevering in those losses and then winning. And then once I started to win, I was like one of the top blue belts to black belts,
That's awesome.
But it's the losing and not giving up process kind of has really given me confidence in everything that I do in my life.
But that's really it, right? That was a big word, process, right? I tell my students, and I talk about it on my show all the time, that people are way too worried about the results, right? And the results don't matter, because as soon as whether you win or you lose, it's over.
Right.
What continues is the process, and if you're invested in the process, then you're always going to be winning, because no matter what that result is, it allows you to go back to the process and reset.
Doing your best.
Yeah,
right?
man.
Not focusing on the result, what's going to happen, because we can't control sometimes.
That's it.
Things that happen.
I had one of my athletes win his first championship title, and backstage he was very happy, and I was happy too. But I told him, I said, hey, because I remember he said, Coach, I'm never gonna lose this title again. Like this is mine. So I said, okay, let me see it. Took his title. This is backstage. Took his title, and I threw it away. I said, it's gone. It's gone. You won it in this moment. You're gonna have to go win it again. And he looked at me so confused, and he was like, why would you do that? Because if you want to win it, you're gonna have to win it again and again and again. Like just because you won it this time, you're gonna have a new obstacle in front of you. You're gonna have a new opponent, a new challenge. You can't figure out, like you can't base all your emphasis on the fact that I'm never gonna lose this. No, go win it again.
Yeah.
Be
humble, stay hungry.
Yeah, man, stay humble, stay hungry. I love that. And I think that's what the sport
mindset
does.
for everything should be, right?
Man, it does. But it sucks because our society is so driven to teaching us that it's not okay to lose. We have so many kids now, even myself included. When I was growing up, I was never taught how to lose. You were always praised for winning,
right?
But you were never told how to actually handle the defeats. And I wish I would have learned that now or then, so I can actually implement it now. And it took me a long time to get it. I'm gonna be 38 this year, and I feel like I'm just now trying to turn this corner where I can start seeing everything so much clearer. And it makes me a little bit jealous of times of the guys that I'm around, because I'm like, man, I wish I had this at your age. But it's also, you got to go through the stuff so you can actually develop the passion behind it.
We went through those things so we can help the next generation, right? Become better and learn the lessons that we had to learn the hard way.
Man, it's funny because
it's frustrating, right? You're like, oh man, it took me like 10 years, 20 years to learn.
But I feel like it's almost like when our parents used to tell us that, like, well, I'm doing this for your own good.
Right.
You become that person. But through our journey of what we're trying to get them through. And fighting, man, is definitely a journey.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I was sharing with you, like I kind of just got out of the MMA kind of scene the last like 4 years or so, 4 or 5 years. Just, it's a lot of work. Yeah, you just came back from a fight.
Yesterday. Well, no, I can't. Just
today,
now.
Just
morning.
Now.
I was in Dallas. I was in Dallas for the last couple of days for one of my athletes. Landed this morning. Came straight to you. Came here. I'm going to catch on another flight. Pop out tonight, Sacramento tomorrow, and then we're traveling next weekend as well. So it's just it's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot. And
so what keeps driving you to stay in there and help these guys?
Honestly, what drives me the most is being able to be there for these guys. Like I wish I had somebody there for me. I've had people around, people that were like mentors and people that coach, but there was never that person that had been through it. There was never that person that could say, hey, do this, because I never had that. This is what you need to do. This is how you keep your head on straight. This is how, if this doesn't go your way, this is how you're going to overcome it. I never had that. And when I can see the impact that has on my athletes, it drives me to become a better coach and a better person every single day when I do it. And yeah, it's tiring. You've
been doing this for a long time, coaching, not just fighting yourself, but coaching others.
Yeah, I've
partnered like Jared Papazian together, and just, man, it's been a lot of years. You've been helping a lot of guys out. Everybody appreciates. I know we have some of the guys like AD and these guys. They do appreciate,
Yeah, that's awesome. I really it makes me.
They're grateful.
Warms my heart to feel,
Yeah,
to
because
that,
they're gonna probably take that with them to the grave.
Yeah, and it's awesome. And that's what it's for, right?
Yeah.
Like there is no monetary benefit that could change any of that.
Right.
For somebody to go, hey, I'll pay you $1 million to make me feel better. It doesn't work that way. I can't just do that. It has to be based on our relationship. It has to be a genuine feeling.
Yeah.
And I retired from MMA last year fighting.
Yeah, I was there at the fight.
You were there. And now my focus is 100% on other people, and it's an amazing transition because, as you know, fighting is so selfish. And even though I've been coaching people for years, it's just different. It's different when you have to worry about your fight. It's different while you're still connected to the game in that way.
And you had neck surgery. I guess let's go back to your career, your beginning.
Yep.
So you fought in WEC, and then
Bodog before that.
Bodog. I mean, you're in the those early, I guess but I guess feeder programs in a way for UFC. But man, those things were not too far from UFC at that time.
Well, at that time, you got to remember there was no weight class for me. So Bodog was like, Yves Edwards was in there. George Masvidal. No, we were all in the same same organization. That's when Bodog was around, and George Masvidal.
Right.
You know, so these guys were all weird. I mean, it's been
Right.
that kind of a tenure. And there was no bantamweights. There was no featherweights. The lightweights was pretty much the lowest weight class that you can get in the
and
UFC.
they even stopped that when I for 2005 or 6 or something.
Yeah, so it's like what do us little guys do? And they're like, well, go fight on these other, you can go to Japan. There's a huge audience in Japan. Shudo, Pride.
Pancrase. Oh, yeah. They had
Pride. And Shudo, Pancrase. And then when the WEC came around, it was like, finally, the little guys had their stage. And the hardest part about fighting for the WEC was that everybody was still, it was the biggest stage in the world.
Right.
But then to the uneducated, they say, well, when are you going to be in the UFC? And you had to always explain to people, well, it is the same company. It was all under Zuffa. WEC was for the little guys.
Right.
UFC was for the big guys. And you had to explain to them, well, we are in the UFC. It's just for the lightweights. Oh, well, are they ever going to let you fight in the UFC? It's like, oh, man. So it was tough because we're finally on that big stage, and yet we weren't given the.
Like Uriah Faber, man, he was champ forever in WEC.
Yeah.
Did he ever make UFC champ?
Nope, never made it UFC champ.
And so he doesn't get that credit, right?
Yeah.
And then I mean, at least Jose Aldo was able to become UFC champ.
Well, he's fighting for the Bantamweight world title now.
Okay, I mean, but still, he had his day, you know.
He was the GOAT.
For sure,
at
for
145
sure.
for a very untouchable.
And Barao, I think, was also in the bantamweight.
I mean, Dominic Cruz. You've got. Donald Cerrone.
Right.
Carlos Condit.
Benson
Henderson. I mean, so like when we were in the WC, I mean, the biggest names in the sport were coming out of there.
Oh, for sure.
Mike Brown.
For sure.
So, but going back, Bodog was amazing, man. We got to travel around. That was my first experience with traveling with this stuff.
Yeah. Costa Rica, right?
Yeah. It was really cool. Really cool. I didn't get to pay the big bucks like some of the other guys, but I've always just seemed to slightly miss the bus on it, always, on the big paydays. Because Bodog
was paying pretty well, right?
Man, they were paying fat. They were
especially at that time, right?
At the time, because it was it was online poker, and the owner of the league was just using all the money from the gambling. He was like, I'm going to get the best fighters in the world. We're going to travel them around. We're going to give them fat checks that way because it's free money for him.
Right.
And I remember when I got that call that Bodog was going to sign me, I was like, yes, this is it. I finally made this starving student that's been living on people's couches. Like, I'm ready. And then I looked at my contract, and it was $1,500 and $1,500. And I was like, wait a minute.
Oh, man.
Wait a minute. That's not the money. And they said, well, they stopped using the money from the poker business, and now they're using investor money.
Oh, I see. And then it went downhill from there, right?
Yeah, then it went down because they lost all their funding after that. But I remember I was so excited. I was like, yes, I finally get to have some paid money,
right?
Yeah, it was great. It was great. I remember it was the first time I'd ever seen a whole training room designed for an event. We were in Vancouver, Canada, and the lower level ballroom. You know when you go to a weigh-in and they'll have like a little workout room or something for you? They had transformed the entire ballroom into like an elite training center for you. They brought a ring in there. It was crazy.
For Bodog.
Yeah, if you guys want to train, there's a ring down there. There's bags. We got mat. I'm like, wow.
Man, there was the ADCC trials. I think it was in 2004 or 5. It was outside of Vancouver. And
beautiful, by the way.
Yeah, beautiful for sure. But they took us. It was like a 2-hour trek from inside of Vancouver, and man, it was weird. Like, I think because you had to be invited at that time, but the place that was at, I think it was funded by drug money or something, because it was like in the middle of nowhere, and they had like the best equipment.
Oh, for sure.
Around,
You're like,
what?
this isn't legit.
This isn't legit. This doesn't make sense. There's like 20 people in the town.
That's funny. Yeah. But
they had the who's who at the time of grapplers, in the middle of this little town.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome.
I think when I talked to a few people, they said because there's a lot of lakes, and they crisscross the U.S. and stuff.
Oh, so there's like loopholes.
Well, just the like maybe draw. I'm not sure.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like it's like the loopholes where it's like it's.
But it just didn't make sense.
Border.
Why would this make sense to have this kind of a gym here?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a funny story.
But they brought us out there, and maybe they paid for us too to go out there.
But isn't that? I mean, that's what I think is the most amazing thing about this journey. You know, is the stories that we get to talk about like this, right?
Yeah.
Like I've been to so many rural places that I would have never been to if it wasn't for fighting. I mean, I was in Evansville, Indiana, where it was this little tri-county that it was illegal and everywhere around it in the other states. But this one tri-county was this one spot where they held these shows, and this was Bodog also, and all the states that were illegal would come to this one little spot.
And they probably had some tough guys there, huh?
Oh man, just farm
all those wrestlers,
man,
farm boys.
Yeah, and it's the funniest thing. I remember
Matt Hughes and
all those guys
like
out there.
that.
Yeah. There was this one fan. He came up to me after the fight, double fisting 2 tall cans of beer, and he was like, "That was a hell of a fight, man." I was like, I think he was missing teeth, and I was like, "This is amazing."
Make me choke up, man.
But I mean, that's part of the journey, right?
Yeah,
like, the experiences.
Different experiences, right?
And I think that's what I've come to realize, that when I travel with my athletes, my fighters, it's the experiences. It's that's the stuff that lasts forever.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. What was some of the, I guess, what was the craziest experience or most interesting experience for you?
Most interesting experience. Oh man, there's been some good ones.
Yeah, so many. Right?
I was in Japan training for a while. That was amazing with Rumina Sato, and that was great. I got to actually corner him when he fought.
What gym was it at?
At his gym. Oh my God, I'm blanking out on his gym. It's in a
Deep? Not Deep.
No, it's not Deep. It's wow. I can't believe I'm blanking out on that. And that's actually like one of my problems that I've been actually having lately. Is that and it's I'm sure it has a little relation to do with everything that's gone on for the years, but my memory isn't as solid anymore. You know, it can be
get you doing some tack with stuff, get that neuroplasticity
hey,
going.
Let's do it.
Connect those dots again.
Let's do it, man. Because I mean,
bring it back.
It seems like those dots are getting further and further away.
Yeah, you got to do the right stuff.
But I'd say probably one of the greatest experiences when I fought in New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Yeah, I went out to New Zealand. This was after I had gotten released for the WEC, and I was pretty bummed out. And but then I got an opportunity to fight New Zealand on a show that was USA versus New Zealand, so I got to represent the country.
Nice.
And they flew us out there, and they gave us this whole private tour of the island that we were at, helicopter tours and all this stuff. We were greeted.
Those are those experiences, right?
Man, we were greeted by
like kings. Man,
it was amazing. When we arrived, they took us to the temple that they had on the traditional land, and they greeted us with a Maori haka.
Haka, yeah.
So they had all these people. Oh man, it was just unreal. And I fought their #1 guy in their country, who's actually the #3 in the world flyweight right now in the UFC, Kai Kara France.
Oh wow!
And it's funny because I remember when we did the weigh-ins, they were telling me of how excited they were to have the Americans here, but they also made sure to remind me that they were cannibals less than 100 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, I guess so.
Damn.
And it was just funny. I was laughing about it. But
that'd be crazy, huh?
At the same time, you're like, I don't know if I want to win this fight. This is weird. But I won that fight by first round knockout, and then I got to stay there for an extra 4 or 5 days, just as a vacation. So I mean, that was just an unreal trip, just for the experience of it.
Yeah,
the people were amazing.
How many total fights did you do?
28. 28 fights.
What are some of the countries you've got to go to?
Fighting or coaching as well?
We'll start with fighting and then coaching.
Okay. Fighting, let's see here. I fought in Canada, Mexico, Japan, New Zealand.
What event did you fight in Japan?
Well, I was supposed to fight in Shudo, and a fight never happened. It didn't happen when I got there. So I was training for it, and that's when I was training with Rumina Sato.
I see.
And I went out there. I was supposed to fight one of the Shudo champions. And when we got out there, they told us it was supposed to be for the title. And they told us that it wasn't going to be for the title, that I had to beat him, and then my rematch, if I won, I would get a title shot. And that made no sense to me. Like, why am I coming all the way to Japan to fight the champion?
Classic thing, yeah.
And so we ended up not taking the fight, but I still trained, and I got to be a part of some really amazing stuff that I was out there. Sure. Rumina fought in, was it Shudo? It was either Shudo. It was a big show, and it was really cool. So I got to corner Rumina and be a part of that. And that was, I mean, if you don't know who Rumina Sato, I know you do, but the average person, if you don't know who Rumina Sato is, an absolute legend in the sport. I mean,
he was the first lightweight MMA superstar. Really.
I mean, did you remember when he did
Flying
that flying
arm
armbar?
bars. Yeah, he was the
just
flying
came
arm
straight
bar.
across the ring. Boom, flying
Yeah.
armbar. And yeah, he's such an amazing person too.
Mm.
Such an amazing person.
Yeah.
So let me think. Is that where I fought? And then coaching's taken me all over the
Yeah.
place now. Especially doing the seminars that I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I'm bouncing all over the place. So we've been in Brazil, Spain, Mexico, all throughout Mexico, Sweden. Yeah, Sweden.
For UFC, right?
Yeah. Yep. But I also got to do seminars while I was out there as well, so that's
Mm-hmm.
really cool. And that's the pretty
What
one of
places did you go to in Sweden?
we were in Stockholm.
Stockholm, okay.
Yeah, we were in Stockholm.
Waldo?
Yep, with Waldo.
Waldo, okay,
yeah,
cool,
yeah,
cool.
Waldo's gym.
Yeah.
Waldo's awesome. Have you been to his gym?
SPR, I have.
Man, that thing is like an
Amazing.
underground bunker. It's beautiful.
The walls, like it's like 1,000 years old, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. I remember I walked in this place and I'm like, okay, you see the little lobby, and then you walk
Right,
in and it's
right.
just this,
It's pretty
this
cool.
crazy
It's one of the
little.
nicest gyms I've ever seen.
It's unbelievable.
Something else, yeah.
It's I don't even know if I can give a description of it if you haven't seen it. It's like those even just the black walls on the inside of the place when you get
Yeah.
in. It's incredible.
Yeah. They said it was like a beer brewery like 1,000 years ago.
Is that what it was? Wow.
And the walls are like, I don't know how thick they are. Super thick. Maybe
Yeah,
like 10
I'm sure,
feet
yeah.
or something.
I mean, it looks. That's why I said it looked like a bomb
Yeah,
bunker or
yeah.
something like that.
yeah, really cool.
Yeah, his gym was amazing. The food there was not.
Did you get sick?
No, I just wasn't a fan of the Swedish
Mm.
food. It just,
What'd you have? What are some of the things you had?
you know, everybody says you got to have the meatballs.
Oh, okay.
And the meatballs are meatballs, and they're like, oh, but they're Swedish meatballs. I'm like, it's a meatball. You know, like I don't know.
Did Waldo take you to
No,
the place?
no.
He's pretty good at the restaurants that he chooses.
Is he?
I think so.
So you've had some good food over there.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
See, but you think so.
Yeah. I would know, yeah. It was good.
See, if you had something
yeah.
amazing, you'd be like,
Right,
man,
right,
there was
right,
this
yeah,
one
for
place.
Sure, for sure.
Because I'm sure there's plenty of places you've been to that you can just point out, be like, I had the best thing of whatever it was at this location.
Yeah. I guess I'm spoiled a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just, if I'm hungry, I'm grateful that everything's good, you know, no matter what.
That's
I'm a
funny.
caveman, I guess.
Yeah. Hey, it's all good. I mean, you know, traveling, I love that's part of traveling.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love tasting the food of everywhere we go. That was also, I think, the best food I've had was in New Zealand.
Oh, okay.
Period.
Did you have some lamb?
I don't know if I had lamb. I might have. You know what? It's funny. I know when I was in Japan, Rumen and their guys made me try horse meat.
Horse meat.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm not doing that. And they were like, you're in Japan. You have to. And I was like, all right.
How was it?
It was actually delicious.
Yeah. I had some horse meat sausages. I grew up in Germany.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
and so
yeah.
that was like a thing.
I was in Germany. Okay. That's see, it's coming.
Yeah.
Amsterdam.
Amsterdam. But I remember it was delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a sashimi that I had.
Sashimi horse meat.
Yeah.
Damn. Raw horse meat.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah. I don't know if I probably would never do it again, but if I recall, it was delicious.
Raw horse meat. Wow.
Well, I mean, think about it. You can have, you know,
How does that work even?
Just same way you eat raw sushi.
Raw fish?
Yeah.
Huh.
But, you know, there's plenty of places here that you can get like the beef sashimi.
Mm-hmm.
It just got to be cut just right. It's got to know, you know, so you don't get sick.
Yeah. Huh. I'm going to look into that. Can you get it here in the U.S.?
I don't think so. I think
Yeah.
it's illegal here.
Man, that's crazy.
And then I remember they had me eating natto out there.
What's natto?
Natto is fermented soybeans.
Hmm.
Yeah. That wasn't my favorite thing. And then they realized that, so they kept ordering things that was hidden inside. And they're waiting for you know like the Japanese culture is like they're so like reserved, and then when something happens they lose their shit.
Yeah.
And so every time they'd order something, and when they'd look away and act like they weren't trying to look, I knew that something was fucked up about it. And I'm like, I'm not gonna eat that. Like, oh no, it's delicious.
They're fucking with you, huh, the whole time?
Yeah, natto is to me it's like snot and beans.
Mm. Yeah.
And they love it though.
Hmm.
My buddy would eat it every morning on his eggs.
Oh, raw horse meat and some of these things. I'm like, I'll skip it.
Yeah, but
I
it's
would
an
just think-
experience.
It's experience for sure. Yeah.
I'm sure you got some crazy stories too, though.
Man, my last fight, you know, Farid Kader, he's a judoka, I used to train with him at Team Quest,
Okay.
and we became friends there. And he got a really good big sponsor, and they did some events in Costa Rica. And the last event that they did, it was in the south of France.
Okay.
So he invited me to fight out there. So it was pretty cool, and it ended up being my last fight.
MMA fight or jiu-jitsu?
MMA fight, yeah. So I was able to take my wife as my corner.
Oh, that's
because
awesome.
there was a bunch of guys there to corner me and stuff too. But it ended up being in an outdoor arena right on the Mediterranean.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I arrived kind of like my birthday's on the Bastille Day, the Independence Day of France.
Okay.
So I arrived on my birthday with fireworks and everything. It was really cool, actually.
That's awesome.
It was like a perfect way to kind of
And when was
bow
that?
out.
When was that?
Man, this is in 2012, I think. Yeah.
Wow, so it's been a while.
Yeah, and I didn't know it was gonna be my last fight, but I didn't get relicensed because I was diagnosed with MS like the next year.
Really?
I was supposed to fight locally here.
Wow, I
And
didn't
I
know.
had
I
some
didn't know.
lesions in my brain that they found.
Wow.
So I was gonna fight in a local show. My wife, of course, was hoping I wouldn't, but then they wouldn't license me, so that ended up being my last fight, which was like kind of perfect,
Wow.
But anyway, going back to that fight, it was, the arena was like, they said gladiators used to fight there. So when we walked out of the tunnel, like the theme of the event was like gladiators walking
Oh, that's
out.
awesome.
So you walk out of the tunnel and you really felt like that.
That's awesome. See, I feel like I should go back and just do one more, just so I can get
Right.
that experience.
And it worked out because I won too,
That's cool.
so I didn't
How'd you
really
win?
get hurt. Heel hook.
Heel hook.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
But leg locks don't work.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Until they do.
Until they do.
Yeah. And so of course they try to sprawl and brawl with me, right? But I grabbed a single leg and then I just pulled guard,
Yeah,
and
there you
we
go.
went right into it, yeah. Because the rules in France where you can't punch on the ground,
Really?
which if you're a jiu-jitsu guy, that kind of hurts you a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
Because then the guy can just kind of turtle up
Yeah.
and they can just stand
so in
up.
France,
and then,
you couldn't punch on the ground. Then, huh?
I think they're changing it now.
Well, so it's not even fully changed over.
I'm not sure.
Interesting.
But there's a lot of politics right over there. They said
I'm
I'm
sure.
barbaric and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But there's a lot of good MMA fighters, right? French MMA fighters.
Yeah.
But they have to fight in those rule sets or they have to go to the border towns.
Interesting. I wonder why that is. It's just an odd.
Yeah, they said it was barbaric, the politicians or whatever, and so they found a way to keep
You
it
can
going.
knee me in the face, but you can't hit me on the ground. It's too barbaric.
Yeah, that was epic, and then we were able to
How'd
make a
your wife
vacation
like
of
that?
it. It was cool because it was like first round submission, so got to
First
vacation
round.
after.
Nice.
It was right next to the French Riviera, so
That's
it was
awesome.
like
I want to go to France. I've never
dream
been-
come
never
true,
been. Yeah.
really.
That's cool.
Got a convertible and got paid to
That's
to
cool.
do what we love to do.
What about what did you still compete in jiu-jitsu after that?
I did. So I got diagnosed like the next year, and I hadn't done jiu-jitsu competitions for a while because I'm going to focus on this. I've fought for 10 years in MMA, and then they wouldn't license me, so I was like, "Can I still do jiu-jitsu?" And then I was like, "Sure." They said sure, and so I registered for the next month for a tournament.
Wow,
Excuse me. And then I went on a world tour pretty much.
that's awesome. Just competing.
I went to all over Europe, all over the U.S., Amazon, even Asia.
Wow, that's awesome. That's on
Because
my list.
like if you look up like multiple sclerosis and MS and stuff, like it's pretty crazy, man. Like people are on the wheelchairs and they lose like their capabilities and stuff. And I'm like, man, what if I can't do it in 6 months?
So you just wanted to knock it out as much as you can.
And then I had some spiritual moments, and I was like, I got this, I had, I've kind of talked about it before, but I went to Spain and I actually got food poisoning, but I kind of persevered and I was able to, I got sick, I threw up, and after my first match, and then ended up basically being able to, like, I won the open weight division after that, and just with mindset,
Man, I love it. I absolutely love it.
because I was like, food poisoning, it's like you have the flu.
Yeah.
I couldn't drink, I couldn't eat. I was so weak. And then what do you do? And so I just started thinking about, memories and, the mantra I had in my head was, I believe in my technique.
There you go.
And then I just kept saying it for like some hours. And then I just started feeling better just as far as that. And then I just went out there and just had that mantra in my head. And ended up winning the whole thing. I had like 3 matches in
That's
that
awesome.
division, and then even did a couple more matches later that day.
That's awesome.
But after that, wasn't the wins or losses, but just that I was like, I got this, you know, I got this thing.
And people don't understand that, like, once you just engage the mind, which really does
mind,
dictate
right?
everything.
It's on the
right?
mind.
It really is.
And like fighting and like jiu-jitsu, MMA, all these things, it's spiritual training.
Man, it really is. And that's why we talked earlier about, you know, some of the things that I think is still a problem with MMA is that, you know, everybody wants to be a tough guy.
Right.
And
there's
even
not a respect.
No,
for,
I remember when I was
Respect.
first starting, my mentality was so different than it is now. I was like, I'm a fighter. I'm not one of these martial artists. These martial artists are those karate guys that run around in gis that act like they can fight. I'll beat that guy's ass. And that was my mentality then. And it's so naive. And now I look back at it, I'm like, wow, it's completely flipped script, because now I am the other guy. You know, I'm the guy that doesn't really feel like I have anything to prove anymore. It's just, it's the spirit. Once you kind of click with that spiritual side of it, there is no trying to convince it anymore. It's not like you're trying to prove anymore. It's just like, this is just the way my life is.
Like fighting and it's just a small portion, right, of our lives, but like the benefits that you get from fighting, martial arts, fighting, I mean, it's the same thing. If you ask, you know, it's the same thing for me, but just because, you know, you get the same things in both, even if it's not fighting MMA, but also in jiu-jitsu.
Right.
That spiritual, I guess, you know, your increase in your spiritual level, you know, and you know,
That frequency.
that transfers to everything that you do.
Yeah.
It helps you in everything that you do. And so that's much more powerful than being able to beat somebody's ass.
Oh, man.
That's what makes you.
Yeah.
That's what makes your success. That's what makes everything in your life, you know, happiness even. So
Yeah, like even last night, my guy that fought in Dallas.
yeah, that's a perfect example.
45
Wasn't
years
about
old.
that.
No, he told me he wanted a real tough fight. And so he basically manifested his way into fighting in the LFA stage against a top prospect
In
at
his
45.
40s, yeah.
45 years
45,
old.
amazing.
And he looked like a zombie in that fight. Just his face was bloody and beat up on every... I mean, he had 4 or 5 different large lacerations. And he wanted this. And you could tell in between each round, the doctor's talking to him. And he said, hey, like, I'm going to stop this fight. And he said, don't you dare. I'm in this fight. You're letting me finish this fight. And he just wanted to be there. And he fought his heart out until the very last bell.
What does he do for a living?
He actually runs a rehabilitation center for drug and alcohol abuse. And so, I mean, for him, it was much more than just him, too. It was showing his patients what it means to have perseverance. And just keep pushing. And so that, like, for him, it was like, yes, he was fighting for him, but there was so much more that needed to come out of that for other people. And, you know, when you have a purpose, sometimes that thing just gives you the extra push.
Yeah. You just showed me, like, you have another movie coming out.
Yeah. It's the sequel to the film.
Sequel. Is it the same director?
So it's a different film team, and basically the first film, Occupation Fighter, was the story about a fighter and the truth about what it means to be a fighter. The stuff that isn't talked about, the pains, the financial burdens, the
You're making
unaware.
millions, man. You're on TV.
Yeah, man. Yeah, but
What are you talking about, man?
yeah. Hey, well, then you can break me off a little piece because I never saw that. But yeah, so the first film was about that. It was about just the truth about what it means to be a fighter.
Yeah.
And this film is the conclusion of that. This one's about what it means to have the life of a fighter, the dedication of what it means to really contribute yourself to something that maybe you didn't even know was going to be your life journey. And so they documented everything up to my last fight and all the things that happened with it. Again, the injuries that I had to overcome. And we also introduced a couple of my athletes that are going through the same story that I did coming up in the sport.
What are some of the injuries you've had?
So in 2012, I had back surgery for my L5 S1. I had a 12.5 millimeter herniation, which had extreme sciatica that ran from my hip down to my foot. And I don't know if you've ever experienced sciatic pain.
Not like that.
It's one of the worst experiences I've ever had in my life.
Could you sleep at night?
No. I mean, here and there I was smoking a lot of weed, doing anything I could just to get rid of the pain. I mean, walking straight up and down wasn't doable for about 3 years. So the injury actually happened about 3 years prior to, but I was in the heat of my career. This is when I was in the deep fights of the WEC. So instead of me getting it looked at, I didn't have time to. It wasn't, I wasn't, you know the mentality. I was like, no, I'm not going to go see a doctor. I know exactly what's going to happen. It's going to take time off from me trying to pursue this dream. So instead I had a doctor that I worked with, and we just fed me full of cortisone and epidurals, and
masking the pain.
So of course I feel great. And what do? I go right back to the training room. Now I'm 100 miles an hour again. Boom, 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 boom. Acting like nothing's wrong when all I'm really doing is making it worse. I had just won the Brown Belt World Championships in IBJJF, and that was where my back just said no mas. It was the cortisone stopped working, epidurals didn't work, and I remember specifically I got off the mat and I was like, something's not right. And after that, I started just hunching over again. It was just bad. So I finally went to go get an MRI. And the doctor said that when they saw the scans of the MRI, they were certain it was somebody in a wheelchair. He said he couldn't believe that it was an actual competitive athlete and that I had just won a world championship title with that severe of an injury. So they actually took my scans and wanted to use it for clinical studies that somebody had been able to
show you, man, the spiritual, mind over matter, right?
That's it. And
that
then
we're capable of.
Yeah, and that was my first, I think, understanding of that. I still didn't have a full grasp of it, but that was when I started realizing, like, wow, okay, well, maybe there is something to this mind over matter thing. And I think that's when I started getting obsessed on it. But the rehab process was rough, because I wanted it to be better now. So I did about 6 months of rehab. Actually, not even rehab. We did 6 months.
You had surgery?
Yeah, I had surgery. I had a microdiscectomy where they went into my back, shaved the discs down that were causing the impingement on the nerve. But I also had stenosis in the spine, so they had to drill that out of my spine, and that way so it could basically clear the way so it didn't build up again. They took bone marrow from my hip and tried to culturize that to make stem cells. So they injected the incision point in all the areas, the other discs in my back with the stem cells, and hopefully to regenerate within time. And I haven't had a new MRI to see if it's actually done it. But the interesting thing is, leading up to his last fight, all the back pain symptoms came back. Everything, like there was times where
your last fight now?
Yeah, my last fight, where I couldn't even get off the couch. Like my wife is basically like, what are you doing? And I'm using the wall to get to the room because I was in such bad pain. And it just happened to be the same time that the cameras were on. And so it was really cool to be able to share the first part of my journey where I was going through the struggles, and then I got to share the things that I had to really overcome leading into my last fight, which I think the message of this story really is, if you want to do something, you have to make your mind believe you can do it, and you can do it. And that's really what this next film is about, because, I mean, that's what all of us have to go through. Right. Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're absolutely right. And
Henry Ford said that, right?
What?
He had that quote, Henry Ford.
Yep, Henry Ford.
If you say you can or you can't, you're right in both.
Yeah, I mean, every greatest achiever in the world has dealt with adversity. They just felt like they believed they can do more.
What's the name of the movie?
The new movie is going to be called Life of a Fighter: The Journey.
The Journey. Is it going to be on Netflix?
So I'm sure they're going to do their shopping around for it, the way that process works. Once it gets done, the trailer just got cut for it. I think it looks awesome. They did a great job. And it's cool, man. I'm really excited to see the product. I mean, I haven't even seen anything yet. So when I showed you the trailer, that was the first thing that I saw. We just got that a couple days ago.
Cool.
And then
well, you're an example for all.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
I got a kid coming on the way now, and so that's so baby Logan will be here in May. So I'm excited.
It's coming around the corner,
man. And I got so many things I still got to try to figure out before he gets here. And it's just it's another part of the process, another part of the journey that I have no answers to. I have no idea what I'm walking into.
Got to do your best, right? Same thing.
That's it, and
show up and do your best.
And I try to give
it your all.
That's it, and try to give some good tools for him to live his life by at an early age. And people ask me all the time, well, is he going to be a fighter? I'm like, I don't know. That's on him. You know, I'm not going to push it. Of course, I'll play jiu-jitsu games and stuff. And now where I'm at in my life, I'd probably rather him just do jiu-jitsu than fight. But I also can't take away from the fact that fighting allowed me to become who I am today.
Yeah, let him decide, right? And if he decides he wants to do it.
That's it. You know,
no matter what you do, have the same mindset, right? To do your best and
that's it.
give it everything you got.
Just try to teach him from day one that, you know, if you want to do something, do it. Don't be worried about failing.
Yeah.
You know, if you're worried about failing, you're already going to fail.
Yeah. How did your jiu-jitsu journey, or how did that process start in the whole scheme of things?
So
jiu-jitsu, we talked a little bit about how a lot of MMA fighters, they don't have the jiu-jitsu thing to fall back on.
Yeah.
Well, you got belted, and there's a process in that.
So jiu-jitsu's always been a big part of my training, you know, but it wasn't until I got my brown belt that I really fell in love with what
because
jiu-jitsu is.
When I look at you, I feel like you're a jiu-jitsu fighter in a way.
Right, and that I actually resonate more with the jiu-jitsu community than I do the fight community anymore. And I think it's because of the martial value of it. You know, where fighting, I still don't really see that most of these guys realize they're martial artists, where jiu-jitsu brings you so much more out of it, even just putting on the gi, right? Like, there's that just simple process. You put on the gi, you tie your belt. It's already part of the process. You're falling in line with it. Okay, this is the process of what I need to do to get better. I bow on the mats. I pay respect to my teammates. I pay respect to my instructors. Where MMA gyms, guys just come into the gym, they punch each other in the face, and they leave. There's not much value out of that collectively for a community, where jiu-jitsu really is the community. So as I digress, going back to when I started, it was when I got my brown belt when it really clicked to me that I'm starting to see what jiu-jitsu does for me. I realized that jiu-jitsu, the reason why I don't want to train in the gi is because it's hard. I don't want to train in the gi because there's this blue belt that might submit me. You know, these are the things that I realize that I'm running from, that jiu-jitsu allows me to have that opportunity to face. You know, like jiu-jitsu, I mean, what
the same thing, right?
What other sport in the world can teach you that it's okay to fail just so you can win? You tap out every single training session, and you actually thank your training partner for that. They don't realize that. You shake hands after they submit you. You literally are thanking them for submitting you. There's not many other things in the world that can make you do that.
If somebody told you the gi is the best training tool that you're ever gonna have when you first started training martial arts or MMA jiu-jitsu.
Oh, so you're high. Like that's some silly shit. Like, you guys are over there rolling around in pajamas. You're insane. But now I make all my athletes do it for that reason, because I was so against it. I'm like, listen, don't be like me.
Yeah.
Like, allow yourself to get this message early. And then when they do it, they go, oh my God, you were right. Like, no shit. I'm not telling you this just for my own good, you know? And so when this started resonating with me, I realized that I wanted to be a jiu-jitsu guy. And so I took a little break from MMA in 2015, and I said, you know what, I'm going to take a break from fighting, and I only want to focus on jiu-jitsu. I want to be able to be on the mats of the best in the world, and that was my focus. So I stepped away from the sport for about 2 years, and I literally wanted that, and all I did was train jiu-jitsu, and then I started competing in the sub-only events, and I started getting invitations.
The Eddie Bravo.
Yeah, and so I remember
you're the first combat
jiu-jitsu champion.
Combat jiu-jitsu world champion.
But even before that, I remember when I was like, you know what, I want to go against these guys.
I totally forgot about that. Oh my God. I saw the video of you slapping the guy. Yeah, I think I'd rather be punched than have that be slapped like that.
For MMA guys, like, slapping, they were like, I mean, it's only slapping? Like, it's crazy. But let's go back to Boss Root and Pancration style. Like you could slap the hell out of somebody if you're using palms.
Yeah.
But these guys don't know how to do that.
Right.
They're slapping, and I'm trying to use ground and pound.
Yeah.
But going back to when my first sub-only experience was, I remember I was like, I want to be on that EBI. I want to show that I can be on that stage. So I trained my ass off. This was when leg locks were still,
a little taboo.
Yeah, it was like, people do them. The Danaher team really started showing up, and Eddie Cummings was the man then. And I remember he was in this EBI tournament, and I got the invite. And I was like, cool. So I was a brand new black belt, and I won my first match by escape in overtime, the EBI rules, and then I got my opportunity at Eddie Cummings. I mean, that was the match that I said I want. I wanted to test my leg locks out, and I got heel hooked in like 20 seconds, and I didn't understand, like, how was that possible? I thought I was so good at leg locks, but then I realized when I go back and review what I was doing, I was practicing leg locks with the equivalents of a junior high school team in leg locks.
Those levels, yeah.
And at the time, he's a professor training with professors in leg locks. So then I had to take that information, that data, and I was like, okay, let me study this. Let me go back to the drawing board. Let me figure out what I did wrong. And so then I started studying. And then my leg locks really started to develop. And it was because of me losing to him the way that I did. I had to figure out what I did wrong, but at the hands of one of the greatest leg lockers there are. It wasn't like it was a guy that studied his stuff. It was like I literally got the hands-on experience. Yeah. Regardless of how long it lasted, I got to understand what that real bite felt like. And I mean, that kind of information is priceless, you know, to be able to be in there with that caliber. Yeah. So then I went back, and then I remember I got another opportunity about a year and a half later to compete against one of his main guys, one of his main training partners, Frank Rosenthal. Okay. And I did a super fight against him in Jersey, EBI? Philadelphia. No, just a super fight. We headlined this card in Philadelphia. Cool. And I'm a wrestler. He's a leg guy, and it's no secret what's going to happen. I'm going to try to wrestle. You're going to sit on your butt. So I said, you know what? The way I'm going to prepare for this is I'm going to go and do all these Naga tournaments, and I'm going to sit on my butt, and I'm going to leg lock. I'm just going to go for leg lock so I can understand the psychology of what they are going for. Not just being on top and shutting it down. I want to know what they're going through psychologically when they're attacking. So then I started doing that. So then when it came out time for me to go out to Philly, I sat guard, and he was so confused because everything that they studied showed that I was going to be a wrestler trying to put you on your back. I pulled guard, and we went leg locks for 10 minutes, and he couldn't catch me. And it was at that moment I was like, okay, I know where I'm at. And that's all I needed for me to understand, like, I'm finally where I wanted to be in jiu-jitsu. And then I started getting into combat jiu-jitsu, and then I went back to fighting, and I did some fighting stuff.
Nice. How many fights did you do after you came back?
3. I did 3 fights. I had 2 with Bellator, and then I had 1 with Lights Out, and that was my last one. And then in between there,
which fight was that when you choked the guy out?
That was the Von Flue choke.
Right. But the ref didn't call the fight, but you're like, dude, this guy's out.
Yeah, so that was
that when you came back?
I'm sorry, no, that was actually the one right after I took my break, or right before.
Right before you took your break. Yeah, that was the last one. Yeah, that was like legendary. Like, just, you know, it's like ultimate sportsmanship.
Funny enough now, that referee Mylan, he's a student of mine now.
Ah, okay.
He signed up for classes at my academy. He's a blue belt. Pretty funny, but
like, I want to train with this guy.
It was pretty cool though, you know, just the whole process of that. And then when I got into the jiu-jitsu, and then combat jiu-jitsu came around. Yeah. And I remember that when I got the call for the first one that happened, it wasn't even the world tournament. It was a 4-man invitational. The week of that invitational, now I had to make 135 pounds for the same day weigh-ins. I'd never done that before in my life. And I knew it was going to be a struggle because, you know, fighting MMA, we have a day before weigh-in. So that week, I actually popped my rib out it was a Monday. So EBI was on a Friday or Saturday. I don't remember what it was. But I remember I popped my rib out on my last hard training session. And I'd never popped a rib out before. And I'm sticking out. I'm like, holy shit, this is not good. And I didn't want to call and tell Eddie and say, hey, I think I'm out of this tournament. So I just said, you know what, fuck it. I already committed to doing this, and I'm going to compete anyways. I'm going to see how this feels. So I did all my rehab, and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't take deep breaths. And this is where, like, the mentality stuff really started coming in for me, because I said, okay, this is the first ever combat jiu-jitsu event. I'm not going to back out. Just making it there is going to be a victory. Cool. Me making weight at 135 pounds for the first time ever with a rib injury, that's going to be a victory. So then I started focusing on just what the victories were. Like, it's not about the result. It's about the small victories in the process. Got the weight off, made 135 pounds, and I was like, man, I haven't trained all week. I don't even know how this is going to feel. We get to the event. We start warming up, and I feel like a pinch in my rib. And I don't know if this is a bad thing. I don't know if it's a healing thing. I just know that whatever is going to happen, we're going to do the first match. And so me and this guy named J.M. Holland did the first match. He sat guard, and I threw a big punch that missed, but the whole crowd went nuts. Yeah. And that was what started, you know, this whole... You kind of made
that. Yeah. You made that combat
It's pretty cool.
You know,
it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And
oh my God.
We went at it for the entire, or almost the
like
entire...
I said, I'd rather be punched than have that happen to me.
I would honestly say that I was more nervous for this thing than I was for most of my fights. And I don't, maybe it was just because they were long rounds, 10-minute rounds, and you know, you're going on there with elite jiu-jitsu guys. I don't know.
For sure.
But halfway into the match, he put me in this dead orchard, and my rib fully dislocated. Boom. And I felt it in the match, and I was like, holy shit. Okay, do I focus on it or I just keep fighting? And I said, okay, I knew if it went to overtime, there was no way I was going to be able to have him on my back. So I just dialed in somehow, and I ended up just using all my MMA instincts and just pure ground and pound, just passing and firing. And I secured a Darce choke with like less than a minute left in the match, and I won the match. And
yeah, respect.
We went backstage, and I was just vomiting. I couldn't stop. It was like a vicious cycle. The more I was vomiting, I couldn't. So the more I would vomit, the more I was pain, and it was just it was kept doing that cycle, and I couldn't stop it. And the worst part, I still had another match.
Oh man,
it was a 4-man tournament.
That's right.
And I had Josh Barnett was in my corner. They're hiding me from the athletic commissions because for the combat jiu-jitsu, Camo was actually the sanctioning body for it. So they didn't want them to see me because they were like, oh, he's not fighting. So we're walking around and telling them that, I think they asked, and Josh said, oh, he's just dehydrated, needs some water. So we started drinking water. And I remember Nick Honstein was the guy that I was going to face in the finals. He had just finished his first match, laying on the floor, dying, just gasping for air, just can't even breathe. And so I remember looking at him, and I'm pretty beat up. Yep. I don't even know what's going on. I can't even breathe. And I'm looking at him like, I'm pretty fucked up, but he's dead. And I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, I said, you know what?
I got this. I
can beat a dead guy. And as long as this next match, because the way EBI works is that, the overtimes we're able to just go however long. There was no time limit on the overtimes back then.
You had the spiritual training.
Yeah. Yep.
All your years in doing what you did.
And it all came out there. And I said, you know what?
I have what I have.
Yeah. I'm going to go out on my shield. Whatever's left, I'm ready to give it. And I said, but I remember telling myself, as long as these matches don't take forever, I'm going to smash this guy. 20 minutes goes by, 30 minutes goes by, 40 minutes goes by, and I'm like, oh, shit. And I watch him go from this dead body to a person that's just hungry to beat me. And so we went out there. He was completely revitalized, and I was still a wreck. And I went out there. I said, all right, well, here we go. And I shot in. And we tied up. I had nothing. And he shot a double leg right in the rib. Boom. And then we landed on the canvas, and I had nothing. I fought it as much as I could, and I ended up getting submitted. But it was one of those situations where I wasn't even upset that I lost. I mean, I was winning from the moment I even stepped on that scale.
For sure.
And then the next one was the World Championships that I came back and won.
Yeah.
Perseverance.
Yeah.
And it's cool. Like, there's actually a big combat jiu-jitsu event tomorrow night.
Oh, yeah?
The Bantamweights.
Okay.
So I'll be watching that one in Sacramento.
Nice.
Just,
was that the one you did, Bantamweight?
Yeah. I'm sorry. This one's going to be featherweights.
Okay.
The featherweights.
You did Bantamweight.
Yeah. I would never be able to do that again. How
much you weigh now?
140.
Right now? Really?
42. 50. I don't know. I'm like probably about 160 right now.
Yeah, for sure. I would say at least 20 pounds. Come on, right out of the gate,
You know how it
Once
is.
you don't have to make that weight anymore.
Yeah, I'm always joking with my athletes. They're always saying, like, Coach, how big are you right now? I'm like, about 47. They're like, no way.
Yeah, right.
Maybe, because they're all cutting weight and they don't understand. I'm like, well, I've also got a little bit of the soon-to-be dad strength coming in too. That's filling in nice.
Sure.
And then my wife likes to feed me, so.
What's the lowest point of your career?
The lowest point of my career has to have been when I lost to Scott Jorgensen in the WEC. I was a 7-1 underdog, and I was fighting against the number 2 or 3 ranked guy in the world, and I had everything on my favor. It was like nothing to lose, and I went out there, and it was in Ohio. 10,000 people in the arena, and first time I'd ever fought in a place that big. And I was supposed to box with him.
He has the vitiligo, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. He was an animal. He was the absolute animal of the division in the WC. And all I had to do was go out there and fight, and don't do what I did. And I was supposed to box him, and I came right out the gate and shot, because there was a lot of shit talking about him being a better wrestler than me, and so I wanted to prove that I could out wrestle him. which I didn't even give myself a real chance. You know, as when we walked out of the arena, I started paying attention to how many people were there, how I started paying attention to the fear that I had of everything.
Distracted.
Yeah, and when we got in the cage, I forgot about the game plan altogether, and I shot from across the cage, and he grabbed my neck, drove me into the cage, lifted me up, put me unconscious in 40-something seconds. When I got out of the cage, my boxing coach actually left the arena. I didn't see him until we were back in LA. And that led to one of the lowest parts that I've ever been at, where I never felt depression before. I didn't know what that was, and then I did. You know, I constantly felt sorry for myself. I wanted other people to feel sorry for me. Everything I did was this woe is me, you know. Oh, I let everybody down. I let myself down. It's expected, and this and that. It was this vicious cycle, and it was like the lottery of negativity every time I had a negative thought. It would just create more and create more. And everywhere I go, it would seem like that was just following me. I remember even one time that I was at a restaurant that I went by myself. I was like, I'm just going to go eat a burger by this place by the gym. I don't want to be around anybody. And of course, there was people there that happened to know me. And one of them was an old client of mine. And it was him and his son. And they see me at the restaurant, and they're like, hey, how you been? I'm like, oh, that's good. You know, things been okay. They're like, are you still fighting? I was like, yeah, I'm still fighting. Cool. They go about their way, and my luck, I'm eating at the restaurant, and I look up at the TVs in the it's a sports bar. All of the TVs just start playing my fight with Scott Jorgensen. And of course, from across the restaurant, they go, hey, Chad, look, you're on TV. And I went, oh, that's great. That's great. That's fantastic. And so then I just put my head down and let it play out, and I couldn't avoid it. And I didn't snap out of it until I saw a family photo where we went out to dinner with my now passed grandmother. I couldn't find myself in the photo. I'd gained so much weight, and it was one of those things. I'm like, what are you doing to yourself, dude? You got to stop this bullshit. You got to stop this pity party. You got to just grab yourself by the balls and just say, hey, I'm done with this. I'm done running. And I realized that, honestly, that's what I'd been running from my entire life. It was my own self-doubts. It was my own worries. It was my own just bullshit that I couldn't do it. And that's why I lost to Scott. I mean, let's be honest. I manifested that. As much as I could sit here and put on this show of you know, whatever front I can put on in my character and my demeanor, like that was the real cause. You know, it was my childhood that I never got past. And that moment when I realized that I'm doing this to myself and I was able to face it, everything changed, because I realized that day moving forward. Yeah, that was it. I owned it. There was no more excuses. There was no more
blaming other people.
No, it was me. Everything's me. Everything that I'm doing is me. Everything that's happening around me is me. The people that are around me is me. It's got nothing to do with anybody else. If somebody around me does something stupid, that's still me, because I put myself in that environment.
Yep.
And that lowest moment, that dark time, allowed me to really develop who I am.
So again, it was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, it is. And you know,
bad things, or you think are bad things.
Yeah, of course they're
Those
bad.
losses, right? Those losses.
It's painful.
Right.
Yes, you put a lot into it. It's painful. Yeah. But then what?
Yeah.
You know, like what are you going to sit there and just sulk on that forever?
Right.
Oh, poor baby. Like, no, like get your ass up and go do something about it. You know what I mean? Like, that's what a true champion is. If you want to be a champion, you decide to be a champion. Yep. Plain and simple. Yep. Decide. Make a choice.
What was the best moment in your career?
The best moment of my career. Honestly, this actually winning the combat jiu-jitsu world title. That was I
get excited when I think about you doing your slaps and that. When I think about it.
Well, for me, I think
because it's kind of iconic in a way. Because I think you were the first guy to do it, right?
I was, yeah, and then I was also the first world champion.
Right.
But I think it's not even remove the accolade, right? Remove the accolades. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm very happy for what I've done, but I look at it from the things that I overcame, and coming from the first one where my rib popped out, and then I got to come back and it just proved to myself all these things that were possible. And that's why I think that's the most meaningful victory that I've had. It's the accolade's great. It's something for the wall, but it's more that I was able to prove it to myself. Not that I was even trying to find validation anymore at that point, because I've already gotten past that. But it was nice to say, okay, I do believe in myself. Everything that I've been telling myself is true, and this is just the efforts for it.
What advice would you give to a younger Chad George, a 20-year-old Chad George?
Don't think you know everything, man. Like, allow yourself just to grow. Remove your ego and just have fun with the process. That's the biggest thing I would tell myself. I mean, I'd honestly look back at myself. I'd slap myself a little bit more. You'd be like, you little...
Slap yourself.
Yeah, like, dude,
be more humble.
Stop. Be more humble, because it's going to be a long journey ahead. And I think that's what I didn't realize back then, that it was a journey. This was me. I was like, oh, I'm fighting for the now. And if I would have known that this was going to be a long, lifelong journey, I might have approached things a little bit differently. But then again, at the same time, if I would have changed anything back then, I wouldn't be who I am today. So at the same time, it would be kind of weird to tell myself to change it, because then I wouldn't be the person sitting here telling them to change it.
What advice would you give a white belt starting out in jiu-jitsu?
Stick with it, man. Like, it's a process. Everything you're going through now is what we've all gone through. And what you're going to be able to learn now, you're going to be able to teach to somebody else. And the things that you're learning now are going to be the stepping stones for who you're going to become later. And jiu-jitsu is a way of life, and you're just learning about that right now. And these are the most exciting times for your jiu-jitsu journey, because you're finally getting a chance to learn. You're getting a chance to develop who you are as a person through this amazing sport of jiu-jitsu.
What advice would you give a new MMA fighter?
Are you sure you want to do this? I mean, that's really what it is, because, for a lot of these guys that want to fight MMA, they don't understand what they're getting themselves into. They want to make money. They want to get into this for this stuff.
I'm going to tell them, like, just do something else, man.
Yeah, that's it. Like, listen, if you want to fight MMA, then you have to be ready for the struggle. You have to be ready to make no money for the rest of your life. You have to be ready to have tons of pains. You're going to have to be ready to lose your friends. You're going to have to be ready to lose your girl. Whatever it is, like, you have to be ready to lose everything forever. For however long it's going to take. And now, if you're not willing to do that, it's fine, but go get a job. The sport's not going to be for you. It's a passion sport, and there's the very few guys that actually can make it financially. Even the guys
today, right? With all you make it to the UFC still.
That means nothing.
Yeah,
it means nothing. You make it. You make 20 and 20, right? Let's say you make 20 grand to show up, 20 grand to win. 30 of that goes to taxes, and you've spent 3 months. What if you got hurt? You break your arm in that fight. You break your leg. You're not going back to training.
You have 3 fights in a year. I mean,
so that's like, that could be, let's say you win 1 fight, you lose a fight. That's 60 grand. Like 60 grand a year before taxes.
You have to pay your coaches, your training expenses.
Yeah, for one night, that's a nice paycheck. But for the longevity of what it takes to get that,
better get a job too.
Yeah, better get a job. That's what I'm saying. You better get come on, man.
Well, thank you, man. Thanks for you've been a huge inspiration. I've known you now for quite a few years, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you,
and all you've done for martial arts, MMA, jiu-jitsu. It's a big pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for your friendship.
Likewise, man.
Thank you for being who you are.
Hey, that goes both ways, and I've always been a huge fan of the Alberto Crane, and everything that you've done, and you're an inspiration to many people, man. And it's an honor to sit here and chop it up with you, not just as a podcast, but as friends, and looking forward to the future.
Thank you, man. How can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Chad Savage George. You also have my podcast that's available everywhere, The Savage Hour. Talk about the mind, overcoming, development, and all that kind of good stuff. And then my academy is in Gardena, California Mixed Martial Arts. We also have a satellite location in Southgate for kids and fundamental jiu-jitsu.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
My man.